So I want to talk about the difficulties in being a benzo coach. you know, I think being a benzo coach is probably one of the most difficult forms of coaching or counseling in that, if you have an office and you're a psychologist and people come in every day, you're going to get a wide range of different things. People might come in with problems with their careers or their marriage, or they have some family issues, or then you get stuff more serious. They might have some PTSD from war or something traumatic that they've gone through. Somebody might be suicidally depressed. Somebody's coming to you with things, eating disorder or body dysmorphic disorder, or they have trouble loving themselves, or they're having panic attacks. And then you have other people again more severe, and they have agoraphobia, and they can barely make it to your office, or you need to come to them or Skype them or something. But you see a wide range of things. You see everything in mental health in that regard. I mean, this is what it looks like on Earth. If you deal with mental health issues, you're going to see all these things. As a benzo coach or a psychologist, I mean. But as a benzo coach in particular, you are seeing the worst of the worst in the sense of where we're seeing all these things becoming much more pronounced and being created just in themselves by the benzo withdrawal. Just by the benzo. You could be someone who got on benzo just to help you sleep and, never had any mental health problems. You're on benzo for a few years. Your therapist cold turkeys rips you off the drug, and now it's been 6 months later and you are having panic attacks. You can't leave your house. You're suicidally depressed, and you're just going, what the hell? How did this happen? I've never had this before. And I hear that a lot, by the way. And so the difficulties in being a benzo coach is you're working with people that are going through this very distinct, how do I say it? It's a very, I mean, benzo is not like regular mental illnesses. It's not like comparing it to, coming off alcohol or heroin or some other drug, or opiates or something. It is its own thing. People coming off of benzos after being addicted, quote unquote, tolerant, dependent, they're not addicts. So the game changes on that. You can't treat benzo withdrawal as you would any other drug withdrawal. It's not the same. You can't even treat the benzo-induced OCD or depression or any of those things necessarily just as they're something that was hereditary or situational necessarily. These things are being chemically induced, and they're feeding each other. I mean, the mechanism is so complex and so unique. It's not like anything that I've really witnessed in mental health. Not entirely, though. It's not entirely removed. I'd like to, for someone on the outside that studies psychology and you want to know what is it, it's all the things you've studied: depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, drug withdrawal. It's all of that on one sandwich. It's put in all in the pot, so to speak. And yet all the pieces are interdependent. They all influence each other. Fear fueling fear, and you go, well, that's just anxiety. Well, but the fear fueling fear, it becomes so intricate that then you're not sleeping, which causes depression, which causes a spike in the symptoms, which causes panic attacks, which causes more isolation, which creates agoraphobia, which then strengthens more of the panic-induced, benzo-induced OCD, which creates more symptoms. I mean, it becomes this eight-arm beast that's just grabbing fuel like an octopus and just feeding itself. I'm always looking for some bizarro analogy or metaphor to bear with me, but you get what I'm saying. So again, and going back, the difficulties of being a benzo coach is dealing with the severity of mental illness and how much mental illness can one person could be going through. I mean, on one person going through benzo could literally have a panic disorder, be suicidally depressed, going through all kinds of somatoform disorders from fibromyalgia and restless leg to akathisia to OCD. You run the spectrum. I mean, you can literally have all of these. So whereas in my private practice, I might have someone who's suicidally depressed. Oh, that's a rare case. Thankfully, most people we get them before they're suicidally depressed. They're just depressed, or someone has anxiety or panic attack. But you don't really get someone who has all of these things at once. It's just the problem becomes very difficult, and then because it's chemical and it's not psychosomatic really. Well, to a point it is, but it's cognitive affective. It's there's so many layers to it, and it's so tough to treat. But as I often tell my clients, the treatment as of now, and the best that I can provide from my research and my experiences, having gone through it, being someone that's in clinical psychology who studied a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy and things like Jungian psychology to, Rogerian psychology, giving people unconditional love, unconditional positive regard, helping them find the solutions to their problems, using cognitive behavioral therapy or strict behavioral therapy to do things like exposure therapy and exercise and to cognitively reframe defeating thoughts that become toxic and buried into our unconscious that just weigh us down, you know. Um, yeah, I don't know, I just lost my train of thought with that. But anyway, the difficulties in being a benzo coach, I just want to keep kind of talking about this general theme here. So that's one of them, definitely. It's just how confounded and multi-dimensional, so to speak, mental health can be, and mental illness can be when you're dealing with someone going through benzo withdrawal. The other thing is how dangerous it is. People die from this. People kill themselves. People end up in bad situations and end up in a hospital, and they're put on more meds that may have bad side effects. And that's another good point. When you're a benzo coach, you're dealing with a lot of people who are already on poly drugs. They already have different medications. Whereas if you have your private practice, oftentimes you can get someone that comes in, they haven't even, they haven't resorted to taking a benzo for anxiety, and that's a great situation. You can get there and maybe prevent them that hell, to really get there and to get in front of it and show them that there's other ways of doing this. There really is, and we can beat this. So benzo coaching. The other thing is the emotional connection is really difficult. A lot of times with benzo people, the healing is way longer. It takes a long time. I mean, if you get someone that comes to you and they've got 3 years of tapering or 2 years of taper, or they got a year to taper and then another year or 2 to 3 years to heal, we're in it for the long haul. It's like, all right, here we go. We're going through hell. We're going through battle. I almost don't consider myself even like a therapist or a coach as much as I'm starting to consider myself a captain or a soldier, some kind of a sergeant, in the military. I'm like, troops, here we are today. We have to fight another battle. So, stand tall, grab your weapons, and let's get out there in the field. I mean, that's sort of what it is for a big bulk of it, And again, so being a benzo coach, it requires a different set of skills, I guess, from a therapist than simply sitting on the couch, or sitting at the desk and listening to someone's problems and interjecting here and there to add little things. It's just an entirely different situation. There's so many different things that have to be considered, and which should be the case with most people anyway. I mean, one thing they really hammered in my education with counseling was you treat the whole person. You don't just go to them. So I didn't really get into just really rigid CBT, because I do think the things you went through in the past have a bearing on who you are. Your beliefs were born in the past too. I don't think we just start right now, it's that simple. It's only that simple because that's all Medicaid wants to pay for. But still, you get people who become sort of indoctrinated by the system. They lose sight of that. That's not the golden path. That's just the reduced path by Medicaid and things like that, not wanting to pay for more intensive therapy. That's another topic altogether, if you even followed what I just said there. So getting back, the difficulties of being a benzo coach is being able to be in the ditches with your client for a long time. I mean, I've had clients that just tell me, my therapist gave up on me. They've referred me. And I think, what a dirt bag move, People are fighting for their lives here, and you're frustrated because you can't help them. Well, sometimes that is what it is, and other times you're helping them and you don't realize you're helping them. In the sense that, okay, they got 6 months of hell to taper, let's say. They're never going to come to you in 6 months and say, Thanks, doc. I feel great. You helped me. No, they're tapering. It's going to be 6 months of hell. And there's probably another 6 months of hell after that. So you got to be ready to be in it with them for 12 months at least, and to keep them, their spirits high, keep them motivated, and keep them on that straight line. So it's, I equated, getting my chops in counseling and as a benzo coach as being like graduating, med school and then going right into ER in New York, like getting into the worst hospital, or going to the, Chicago's hospital and just working the weekends in the ER. You're seeing everything, gunshots, car accidents, all kinds of stuff. It's coming at you quick, and I hope it's going to make me a better therapist. I really hope it does, and it doesn't just burn me out or give me, which is another thing I want to talk about too before I end this, is the difficulties of being a benzo coach. Is you see so much negative. I don't want this to burn me out. I have to keep it in perspective and remember that this is the nature of the clients I'm dealing with. It would be like if this happens a lot in forensics. People say, God, I work in forensics. I started out loving it, but man, I sit in there every day. I'm looking across this table at a murderer, a child rapist, or, some kind of just disgusting criminal, this manipulative, violent person across from me. And I start losing hope for humanity. You really start to get a sense of the world by what you surround yourself in. And you know that at first, and you go into it and you try to be smarter than that. But inevitably, it does kind of paint your perception, and you start to feel like everybody's a dirtbag, everybody's dirtbag, because that's all you're seeing. You're surrounded by them, So I have to, as a coach, I have to constantly remind myself that, look, this is the nature of the beast. This is what it is. And it definitely helps that I've gone through it, and I didn't just go through a little light episode. I went through it. 2 years tapering, 2 years after to heal, high dose of benzo. I went through all the symptoms, suicidal, all that stuff. I went through the madness of it all. And so I have so much empathy and love for everyone going through it. And that, I wanted to come back and say the good news is we can beat this. Most people do beat it. You will most likely beat it. But here's the bad news. The bad news is in my prescription, which is you can't lay in bed and wait for it to pass anymore. You're going to have to get up. You're going to have to lose weight. You're going to have to exercise. You're going to have to do exposure. You're going to have to, diet, and you're going to have to drink this much water. You have to practice your lifestyle. You're going to have to become like a military, like you're in the military. You're going to have a program that you wake up to, and every day you got to get up and meet these tasks and do what is expected of you. But if you do it, I promise you this, as a coach, I can tell you, people get better quicker. Hands down, it is not even a question in my mind. The clients I have that do the things that I ask them to do, I promise you guys, they get better quicker. They get better quicker. They respond better. If I could do a double-blind study or something, or some kind of study where I show you, here's these guys did what they did and these people doing what I'm showing them, you would see it in statistics. It is science in my opinion. I just say it the way I'm saying it because I haven't done a research study on this, and I can't point to any necessary research right now. But so I know it's anecdotal, and I understand how that anecdotal evidence doesn't mean a lot, but for what it's worth, I'm just telling you, I've never seen anyone get worse doing these things, and I've only seen them get better. So again, the difficulties in being a benzo coach, probably the most difficult thing, aside of losing someone, is knowing you can help someone, being able to look at their situation and to really pinpoint some things, and then come back to them and say, okay, here's what we need to do. We got to do this, this, and this. And then you call them next week and you say, did you do this, this, and this? No. And this goes on and on. And just no matter how hard you try, not one thing changes. And that becomes super difficult, super defeating. And it's moments like that, I think, as a benzo coach, you could turn your back on someone. You could say, look, you're not doing what you need to do, and it's really taxing me. It's taxing me in a way that I'm not going to be as good to help other people. Like it's, and that is a tough decision. That's where it kind of gets in that gray line of what I said earlier. I don't like coaches that drop their clients. I'm talking about coaches that drop their clients that are trying and they're really giving everything, but for whatever the therapist or usually it's a psychiatrist, right? They just say, well, I wanted you off the drug by now and you're not compliant, so I'm not working with you. They're quick to jump to that and just remove the stress of it. And I try not to do that. I've never done that, actually. I've never turned anyone down. But at the same time, as a healer, you have to protect yourself because things like burnout is a real function. I mean, you can really develop emotional exhaustion, mental illness, you know, compassion fatigue, empathy fatigue. So we have to choose our clients carefully, and we have to know when, if someone is taxing us too much and when do you say, I can't keep doing this for you, I can't help you. And there, I'm one of the last people that will give up on you. I really will. I mean, even if you're not doing everything I ask you, even if you're not doing any of the things I ask you, the way I look at it is, what is the quality of our conversation? If I can honestly say, by the time we get done talking, you feel better. I can see it in you. There's an improvement in just the way you're talking, your anxiety levels, and your perception, more importantly, that I feel like your mind I helped put you back on track. I lined your perception almost like an aperture and the focus ring in a lens. You come to me, everything's blurry, and I just try to slowly spin that lens till it looks a little clearer. And if I can do that, then I think it's worth it. I know it's therapeutic, and that is kind of what I mean. That's part of the anchor of therapy anyway. You don't come in and change someone in 3 to 5 days or something, right? I mean, it's a slow altering of their faulty beliefs and a recorrecting and realignment to reality, and then allowing them to have that assimilation period, that cathartic period of processing and dealing with this and adjusting, more or less. So yeah, I think that's probably all I want to say on the difficulties of being a benzo coach. I see that this is a growing thing. I've seen a few more people offering this, a couple websites, a couple channels. I want to say, if you're not someone with a psychology background, I mean, really, if you don't have at least a master's degree, I really question if you should be doing this, at least to what degree. Now, if you're just offering hope and some basic coaching, I guess it's better than nothing. I don't think you should be charging people, and I definitely don't think you should be telling people what they should be doing or how they should be doing. I mean, you got to have research. You got to have an orientation. You got to have knowledge to pull from, a rationalization for what you're telling them. I cannot stress to you how much bad information that I've read and seen and heard on the internet. I mean, it's one of the reasons I kept doing what I was doing, because I'm like, I'm losing the war. I mean, I don't think my method of what I'm telling you guys is winning in the bigger sense. There's channels that are bigger to me. There's voices that are bigger to me. And some of these places, like the Benzo Coalition and different places, they flat out don't even like me. They don't even want to work with me. They've argued with me. I mean, I've been kicked out of Benzo forums, I've told you guys, just because I said that, if someone was suicidally depressed, that they should consider taking an SSRI. Oh, how dare you, Dave? You can't say that. Well, what is your alternative? Let them die? People come off SSRIs. There are success stories where someone was really struggling with benzos. They got on the right SSRI. They were able to heal from benzos, and then they tapered off the SSRI, and they went on to live their life. That happens. Happens a lot. Happens a hell of a lot more than you guys might think, because we live in this bubble again. We live in this bubble where what we see is what becomes reality to us. And it's no different than the forensic guy who goes in and sits with the child molesters and all those people and gets this negative perception of the world, It's the same kind of thing. If you're sitting on the benzo forums, you're only watching people crying, you're only watching people not get better, and we forget that these are the outliers, that these are the 1%ers, and we think this is it. This is the representation of the whole, and therefore I have a 90% chance of not getting better, and I'm going to be screwed. Well, once that thought and that thought becomes a belief, I should say, you're in for real trouble. The difference between a thought and a belief is tremendous. The belief is, it can keep you up at night. It can prevent you from doing the things that you need to do in the way you need to do them. It could lead to incredible OCD and rumination that will never let you rest, will never give you a real fighting chance on recovery. Yeah, once again, I'm rambling. I think that's a theme. I should rename my channel to Dave Howard's Benzo Coach, and with rambling and coherent suggestions. Anyway, guys, hope some of that made sense. And really, I just been missing talking to you guys, so I wanted to do some things where I just spoke more to you and interacted more with you. I've been working a lot lately, and I've been trying to get the camera set up, and I want to, put my face back in the videos, but I live in Florida. The weather's been tough. The lighting in my studio is terrible. And, it's just, so then what I do is I just wait, and I keep waiting for a better day, to record a video. And then I realize that you guys are losing content and good things that I could be saying, and all, you just don't think you don't have to see my ugly mug. So, all right, well, hey, I'm out of here. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon. Hit the like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And keep strong. Keep fighting.